I don't know of much more important of a topic, and there are many, many, but election integrity ranks up there as one of the most important. Now, I want to say to you that this upcoming segment here is brought to you by FRC Action, which I am honored to be president of. But I want to speak now with someone who knows firsthand about the issues of election integrity and the lengths, the extremes the left will go when it comes to elections. In 2018, Dr. Mark Harris, a longtime pastor in North Carolina, he ran for Congress. He won the race. He was declared the winner. He was prepared to start his new career as a member of Congress. He was at orientation when he was informed of just what the left will do to capture power. I frankly often thought about him while writing this book on election integrity, but I'm honored to have him now as my guest. Dr. Harris, welcome back to Washington Watch. Always great to see you.
Jody, it's great to see you, and congratulations on the book. Absolutely love the title, and I think it's going to continue to be a #1 bestseller.
Well, thank you so much. All right, let's talk about your story. What happened to you in 2019? You'd been declared the winner, then what happened?
Well, as you mentioned, we had already gone to Washington for our orientation segment, and while we were there, there's 2 weeks of orientation, as you know, and we went through the first week. We came home for Thanksgiving. We went back through the second week, and on Tuesday of that second week, suddenly we get word that the State Board of Elections, who had met to do their ministerial duty of approving all of the races and that had already been certified by all of the counties or canvassed by all of the counties involved, suddenly an individual who was an activist on the State Board of Elections made a motion to pull our race from that list to be certified, and made a statement that he had become aware of some things that had gone on in his part of the state, things that had gone on for years. Those were his words, things that had gone on for years that I can no longer turn a blind eye to them. We had no idea what in the world he was talking about. Over the course of the next 24 hours, it would come out that there was an accusation that was being made that somebody on our campaign had, who was working for our campaign, had been involved in ballot harvesting. And that was all we knew. And that individual was denying it and saying, no, he had not done that. And that just set off a whole series of things that we would go through over the course of really the next couple of months that would end up in me not being seated in Congress, a new election being called by the State Board of Elections, Mark Elias getting involved. And it was just a fiasco at every turn.
So there you won the election, you're in orientation, and literally it was taken away from you. A new election is held and someone else ends up going to Congress. Now, let me ask you, and what I think, and also a very important part of all of this, Dr. Harris, is that the number of ballots that were in question were nowhere close to even changing the vote.
That's correct. I mean, my lead on election night had been 1,860 votes. They had kept counting provisional ballots and absentee ballots by mail that were coming in over the course of those days, as you know, they always do. And they had managed to get my lead down to 905 votes. And it almost seemed in hindsight that there was something magical about getting it below 1,000. But there never seemed to be. If that fact, in the county where it was in question, if they had done away with all the absentee ballots I'd even been awarded, they'd done away with all of those, I still won the election by over 500 votes. And the result of having a new election meant that 282,000 people who had voted in that election had their votes just set aside by the State Board of Elections.
All right, well, there's no doubt this experience has given you an enormous understanding of the extremes that some will go in order to take away elections and to get their will. What steps do we need to continue to do? What do we need to do as voters? We need confidence in elections. What would you suggest?
Well, obviously, this was a situation that became a perfect storm. I mean, I've told you in other conversations that everything that could have gone wrong seemed like it went wrong. I got sick in the process, ended up in the hospital, came back, went through this hearing that had no due process, quite frankly. The State Board of Elections became the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, and the executioner all in one with no accountability whatsoever. So I think all of us need to be aware of that. But I will say with great confidence that a lot of things have changed even since 2018 here in North Carolina, and certainly since 2020. Our state legislatures here and in other states have taken some really good steps. If you were to ask me, what do I think is important? No question, voter ID is at the top of the list. I personally believe we got to get into paper ballots that are certainly counted. I believe that if you shrink the number of days of early voting, and one of the things we've seen in North Carolina that made a great difference
this time. We're going to have to wrap up.
Okay, this time we made a decision that absentee ballots by mail had to be in by Election Day at the close. That was huge. You don't wait a few days after for them to come in. So those are just practical steps we need to be taking.
Thank you, Dr. Mark Harris.